you can see here from the major indexes that, I mean, the Dow blew it out of the water. It was up 369 points. The S&P was up 60 points, which was a big day for the S&P. Crude, which was like a gong show for part of the day after 1 o'clock, ended up 10 cents now. Now it's 6 o'clock Eastern, but 4 o'clock Mountain. And then if you look to the NASDAQ, up 385 when it was like down significantly late last week. So last week was a tough week on NASDAQ. But after hours, we've had Apple report, okay earnings. I mean, actually pretty good, but the outlook for China, not so good. So it's weighing on Apple. Meta blew it out of the water. So if you don't use Facebook, you don't like Facebook, get over it. Meta is just a cash flow generating monster. And the fact that it really doesn't moderate anything and gets fined all the time, it still has the money to pay for fines and continue to operate. And this thing is just a money-making machine. So I think it's up $54 after the market close. It's insane. Getting back to where we were today. So Con Ed, almost at $93. So this is a stock that last week was down in the 88 range. So that's a $4 pop, $3 to $4 pop right there, and a stock we've been watching. Another one that we've been taking a look at, this olive oil was interesting today. I mean, if we look at crude for a second, crude at 1 o'clock, it like fell off a cliff, and then it recovered partway and then fell off a cliff again to go even lower. Like it absolutely makes no sense what happened today with crude and crude future prices, but maybe something will come to light in terms of news that will shed some light on this. But you can see the volume and activity here around the drops and then the spikes. A ton of activity, and a lot of the oil stocks correlated with crude. So if you look at 1 o'clock when crude fell off, almost every oil stock fell off as well. And the one that we're following, or I'm following most closely, is Valero. Valero dropped down to 134.54. Like this was a fire sale event. If you could have got in at 134.54, and I missed it myself, I wish I had gotten in. This would have been like the gold rush happening all over again. Anyway, it was a great buying opportunity. I managed to get in the 135 range, which was fabulous. And then just watched this thing and got in and out of it as it tracked upwards towards its close. Now, it did close down a little bit. It closed down at 138.29. I think it opened at 138.90. So it's down for the day from open to close. But this thing was the roller coaster ride of the century. And I must have been in and out of Valero at least 10 or 11 times today during this craziness. So I was fortunate enough to have sold it before it dropped. Just got kind of bored, honestly, with what it was doing. There was no huge movements, and I just kind of suspected that if there was no huge movements, the worst thing that could happen is a down movement, and it wasn't likely to be an up movement. So I just got out around this point, and then I picked it up as it after it dropped, and this was an incredible day for Valero. Now, that said, I think it still has room to get back into the 141, 143, 145 range. Maybe not tomorrow on Friday, but certainly next week, and certainly if crude recovers. But what I looked at when I was making these trades was the volume. And what I want to point out is although the volume is above the average volume for the day, it was not above the average when we were here in this, call it midday range. So in this midday range, volume was actually relatively low. And what I wanted to look at when I evaluated my positions was I wanted to see where the volume was with respect to the average volume. And at some point, I can't remember exactly when, but I want to say kind of somewhere in the 11-ish time frame, it was only 600,000. So At that point, it was, maybe it was before that, maybe it was 10 o'clock, but it was very low at that point in time. It was below the average for that point of time in the day. And I thought that, if there isn't a lot of interest, then it's probably a good time to just take profits and get out and look for other opportunities. So what I moved into at the same time in other opportunities was SLB. And SLB dropped $4 a couple days ago, and I bought in at that point. But then you can see the volatility here. And I picked up and exited SLB today at least 3 or 4 times on the different peaks and valleys, and had a great time in this stock. I think it's still a steal at $49. We'll see what happens tomorrow on open. But I think anything in this range, or certainly the 48 range, gives you a lot of opportunity, especially if you were to hold it for a couple of months if you had to. And it's got a decent dividend. I mean, you're not going to live off the dividend at 2.66%, but it's at least it's half decent. So that's where we are, February 1st. I hope you had a successful trading day. I feel like it was a pretty killer day today, and if you had have made some moves, there were a lot of opportunities in this market to make some money. So I hope you made some money today.